Today we are going to be talking about turnout. Now, as I like to start many of these videos, I'm going to read you a definition of turnout. This, however, is not like a dictionary definition of turnout, but instead like a Wikipedia what ballet turnout type thing is, but it still does the job. So here we are. In ballet, turnout is the rotation at the hips which has caused the feet to turn outward away from the body. This rotation allows for more extension of the leg, especially when raising it to the side or rear. Turnout is an essential part of classical ballet technique. Now, while turnout is an essential part of ballet technique, it's very, very, very important in ballet, but it also extends to other types of dance as well. In fact, even gymnastics, like in acro, when we're sitting in our straddle, or any class, when we begin our day in our straddle stretch, I always tell you to keep your knees facing up towards the ceiling. When you stretch forward, rotate your legs back, keep your knees up, don't turn your toes in. That's your turnout, right? When you lean forward in your straddle stretch and your big toe is touching the floor, you are turning your feet in. And we don't like that as dancers. We like our feet to be turned out at all times, right? So that's why we want our knees to face the ceiling, or I would tell you to try to get your little toe to the back, right? That's that turnout. So yes, it's very, very, very important in ballet, and it's a big staple to what makes ballerinas look so elegant and so poised, but it also extends to other forms of dance as well. So going ballet way for a second, in first position, that's like the first thing that we kind of learn about turnout, right? So a lot of times when I'm speaking to like the 2 or 3 year olds or the younger ballet classes, I'll often tell them, like when we're doing first position, to have your heels kiss, right? Your heels are going to kiss together, your toes are going to turn out, because your toes are really, really mad at each other, and they don't want to touch, they don't want to talk, they want to be as far away as they possibly can at all times. And it's like that a lot in ballet. Our toes stay mad at each other all the time. That's what I'll say, something along those lines. So that's kind of the first idea of like turnout, right? Is that your toes are staying mad at each other, right? They're pointing out. Now, turnout, there's 3 points of turnout. There's 3 points of rotation. That's your feet, which is your toes being mad at each other. You have your knees, which is, when I tell you to push your knees over, or more so like when we're at the bar and we're doing a plie, and I say, make sure your knees are over your toes, right? Don't turn your knees in. That's kind of pushing your knees over a turnout. Some of you guys, when we do our frog sit, by the way, is a really good way to stretch your turnout. A lot of you guys, when you do your frog sit, you complain about your knees. You feel it in your knees, right? That's why, because you're stretching that part of your rotation, right? Your knees need that turnout. And the third part, I guess really rather the first part, we did this backwards, would be your hips, right? So your hips are also responsible for turning out, which goes back to the frog sit. When I sit in the frog sit, it kills my hips, right? My knees are fine, but it hurts my hips, right? Because I'm pushing that outward. So when I stand in first position, I'm going to try to do this for you. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, you can't even see my feet. Right, well, my feet are turned outward, right? So as I plie, it's important to open up from here and really turn out those knees. So I can feel it in my hips right now because I'm pushing my knees over my toes. Does that make sense? Kind of. It's hard to see. This is not the best, angle in the world, but hopefully you get that visual. And we might have done it in class before. If you're in a ballet class, then we've definitely done plies before, and we've at least brushed on the topic of like turnout and how that should work. Another part of turnout is your feet. So when you point your feet, and this is kind of going to another topic, but not really, it's still kind of turnout, and it's a huge pet peeve, but when you're pointing your feet, you want your foot to be straight, right? I'll have to insert a video because I can't turn this around for you. But when you point your foot, you want your foot to be straight. You don't want it to be turned in. Instead, you want it to be turned out, right? So again, I'm going to have to show you a video because this is hard to explain. But when you have a straight foot, it's just a neutral foot, right? It's nice and pointed. Then you can turn it in, and that is called a sickled foot. We do not like sickled feet. I hate sickled feet. I complain about it all the time. Like, a lot of times when you sit on your knees, you'll turn your feet in, and that's when I fuss a lot during that. When you do battement, sometimes you'll turn your feet in. Sickled feet, we don't like them. I'm going to show you a video in just a second. And then you have winged feet, which is like when you're forcing your turnout and you're turning those out. We like those. We like the regular neutral foot, and we like the winged foot as well. But sickle feet we do not like. Ugh, they're gross. I just, nope. Which goes back to your turnout, kind of extending into other forms of dance and not so much ballet. So as I was saying, this is like neutral feet. This is regular feet, and obviously my toes are pointed. If I turn them in like this is sickled feet. Gross. We don't like that. And this is winged feet, right? Because my foot's kind of like turning out a little bit. It's not so much straight anymore. It's like turning out. That is good, and this is good, but this is bad. We do not like sickled feet. Nope. Absolutely not. Right? We want them nice and straight. So also for a visual, turnout is like when your legs are pointing out like this, right? So when you're sitting here like this, you don't want your legs to turn in. Instead, you want to try to keep them neutral or even turn them out. Except when we're stretching forward for our pike and stuff, we typically tend to keep them straight like so. So, overview, we have turnout, turnout, turnout. You can stretch your turnout too, by the way. Frog sits are a really good one for that. Maybe I can find a picture of y'all doing that and post it in this video in just a second. Here's an example of Miss Lily showing us what a frog sit looks like. She has a beautiful frog sit. As you can see, her legs are all the way down to the ground. Here is another example, and Miss Skylar is sitting in a frog sit for us. She is working on her turnout, and see, she's just chilling there, so you could even do it while you're watching TV. Another way to stretch your turnout is your butterfly sit. When you're in your butterfly, you can push your knees down to the ground, and that will really help open up your hips and work on your turnout. Frog sits are a really good way to stretch your turnout. That's probably the best way to stretch your turnout. Just doing ballet, right? When you're at the bar, when you're doing that, you want to work on your turnout and be conscious of it, right? So being aware of what it is going to help that as well. The next big thing is pointing your feet, right, is the sickled part. You don't want to sickle your feet. Instead, you want to turn out. This also goes to like battements. When we do battements and you're kicking your leg, you don't want to turn your leg in, right? I can't show you. You don't want to turn your leg in, but instead you want to try to turn it out. Even in jazz, when we're going across the floor, even in acro, like turnout is just... Well, like the definition says, heck, it gets your leg up higher, right? And it just looks prettier. It looks better, and it's part of that technique that makes the dancer the best that they can possibly be. Well, I hope you learned something. Hope you kind of got a little bit out of this. I hope you at least learned what a sickled foot was. Because that's a really big, that's a really big, not a big part of turnout, but that's like what a lot of you guys struggle with, and I've fussed at a couple of you guys for before. So that's the biggest takeaway that I really want you to get from this video, if you're still watching this far, which I really hope you are, is the sickled part, right? I don't want you to sickle your foot. Instead, I want you to make sure that you're turning it out. So this is something that you can be aware of all the time, even when you're just sitting at home watching TV. Like, are your feet turned in? Are your feet sickled? Like, fix it. Because if you start fixing it with simple things like that, then it's going to be easier, much easier. In fact, it's going to be like second-hand nature, or whatever the saying is for that, for you to do it when you're dancing. So if you can do it when you're watching TV, then you're definitely going to do it while you're dancing. So be aware of what that is, practice it, be conscious of it, and yeah, I guess that's it for us today. Bye, guys.